Kofi's childhood was anything but ordinary. Born into one of the wealthiest families in Accra, his life was steeped in luxury, privilege, and unconditional love. His parents, proud and progressive, adored their only son. To them, Kofi could do no wrong, even as he displayed traits society often labeled feminine. While boys his age were obsessed with football and roughhousing, Kofi found comfort in the company of girls. He braided their hair, painted nails, and shared secrets about crushes. He loved accompanying them on shopping trips and enjoying girls' nights filled with laughter and gossip. At school, boys mocked him relentlessly, calling him names that stung, but the girls always came to his defense. "You're just jealous," one of his friends would snap. "Kofi has more style and charm than all of you combined." And she wasn't wrong. Kofi carried himself with an elegance that attracted attention, and though the boys' laughter hurt, he found solace in his female friendships. After high school, Kofi pursued a career in nursing, a field he was passionate about. He loved helping people, and the work gave him purpose. Nursing school was a breeze for him. His charm and diligence endeared him to patients and colleagues alike. By the time he graduated and secured a position at a prestigious hospital, Kofi's life seemed perfect. It was during one of his routine visits to the bank that Kofi's life took an unexpected turn. He met Amma, a strikingly beautiful woman with curvy body. She swept me off my feet with her infectious laughter, captivating charm, and the way her eyes sparkled with hope for the future. After several dates and outings, they fell deeply in love. Their wedding was a grand affair, celebrated by family, friends, and the who's who of Accra. Though Kofi adored Amma, deep within him lingered a feeling he couldn't quite name. It was a quiet, nagging emptiness, but he convinced himself that love could fill the void. Amma's family welcomed Kofi with open arms. They often invited him to family gatherings at the beach, lavish vacations, and Sunday dinners. Among them, Amma's father, Mr. Mensah, stood out. A wealthy and influential businessman, Mr. Mensah was busy but always made time for his daughter and, increasingly, for Kofi. Amma's demanding job as a banker meant she was often away on work trips or late nights at the office. The house grew quieter without her, and Kofi, yearning for company, often found himself spending time with Mr. Mensah. Mr. Mensah's visits became more frequent. Initially, he'd come under the guise of missing his daughter, but it soon became clear his focus was on Kofi. They'd share drinks, discuss life, and even joke about their shared love for good food and fine wine. One evening, while Amma was away on yet another business trip, Mr. Mensah stopped by with some treats. "Amma isn't home," Kofi said, opening the door. "I know," Mr. Mensah replied with a smile. "I thought I'd still stay for a while. It's been too long since we talked." The two sat in the living room, sipping wine and laughing about old family stories. But as the night wore on, the conversation turned serious. "You know, Kofi," Mr. Mensah began, his voice low, "there's something about you that reminds me of myself when I was younger. I can see it in your eyes. You're searching for something." Kofi froze, unsure of how to respond. Mr. Mensah leaned closer. "I know what it's like to live a life that isn't truly yours. I've carried this burden for decades. Kofi, I'm gay." The confession hung in the air, heavy and shocking. Kofi's heart raced. He felt exposed, as if Mr. Mensah had peered into the depths of his soul and uncovered his hidden truths. Before Kofi could process what was happening, Mr. Mensah kissed him. It was brief, but electric, leaving Kofi stunned. That night marked the beginning of a dangerous and secret relationship. From that day onward, everything changed. Kofi's affection for Amma waned. He became distant, irritable, and uninterested in their marriage. Meals went untouched, conversations grew cold, and Kofi found himself longing for Mr. Mensah's visits. Amma sat on the couch, her arms folded tightly across her chest as she watched Kofi pick at his dinner. "Kofi," she said softly, trying to hide the tremor in her voice, "what's going on with you? You barely talk to me anymore. You don't even look at me the way you used to." Kofi sighed and leaned back in his chair, avoiding her gaze. "Amma, I'm tired." Can't we do this another time? Another time? That's all you ever say, Amma snapped, her voice rising. You're always tired, always distracted, always somewhere else. Do you even see me anymore? Kofi's jaw tightened as he pushed his plate away. Amma, please don't start. I've had a long day. Don't start? Don't start? Amma's frustration bubbled over. Kofi, you've changed. You barely eat the food I cook for you. You don't hold me. You don't talk to me. And you barely even sleep in the same bed as me anymore. What did I do to deserve this? You didn't do anything, Kofi muttered, his voice low and tense. Can't a man just have some space? Space? You're my husband, Kofi. We promised to share everything, our lives, our struggles, our joys, and now you're acting like I'm a stranger in my own home. Kofi stood abruptly, his chair scraping loudly against the floor. Amma, I don't need this right now, he said, grabbing his phone from the table. Amma's heart sank as she watched him pick up the call that had just come in. Where are you going? She demanded, her voice cracking. It's a work thing, Kofi lied, already heading for the door. I'll be back later. Work? At this hour? Amma's voice broke, but Kofi didn't stop. The door slammed shut behind him, leaving her standing alone in the silent living room. The hours ticked by, but Kofi didn't return. Exhausted and heartbroken, Amma eventually cried herself to sleep on the couch, her body curled into a small, fragile ball. The house was cold and quiet, the weight of their crumbling relationship hanging heavy in the air. The following weeks, Mr. Mensah introduced Kofi to a clandestine world, inviting him to secret gatherings where influential men, many closeted, indulged in forbidden desires. The thrill of these meetings was intoxicating, but they left Kofi feeling torn. I need to stop, Kofi would tell himself after every encounter, but the pull was too strong. He began skipping work, ignoring Amma's calls, and spiraling into a life of secrecy and guilt. Kofi's body soon betrayed him. He grew weak and pale, plagued by a constant fatigue that no amount of rest could cure. Amma noticed the changes and grew concerned, but her attempts to help were met with anger and defensiveness. One evening, as Kofi lay in a hospital bed, Amma confronted him. Kofi, what's happening to you? You're not the man I married. He turned his head away, tears pooling in his eyes. But fear held him back, fear of losing her, fear of her hatred, fear of the shame that would follow. Days turned into weeks, and Amma's persistence never wavered. He looked at her, his lips trembling as tears streamed down his face. His voice was barely audible when he finally spoke. Amma, there's something I need to tell you, he began, his voice cracking under the weight of his confession. Amma straightened in her chair, her heart pounding. I'm listening, she said softly, her hand squeezing his. Kofi's gaze dropped to his lap, shame washing over him like a tide. It's your father, he whispered hoarsely. Amma, something happened, something I regret more than anything in this world. Amma's breath hitched, her mind racing. What do you mean? What happened? Kofi hesitated, his throat dry, his chest tight, but he knew there was no turning back now. Your father, he confessed to me that he's gay, and I got involved with him. The room fell silent, the air heavy with the weight of Kofi's confession. Amma stared at him, her face a mix of shock, disbelief, and pain. Her hand slipped from his, falling limply to her side as tears filled her eyes. You, with my father, she whispered, her voice barely audible. Kofi nodded, his body trembling. Amma, I'm so sorry. I never wanted this to happen. I didn't know how to stop it. And now I'm paying the price. Amma's tears spilled over as she rose from her chair, stepping away from him. Her mind reeled with memories, her father's absences, her mother's heartbreak, the arguments that had defined her childhood. And now, this. I trusted you, Kofi, she said, her voice breaking. I know I'm partially the problem, but you betrayed me with my own father? Kofi nodded, his eyes filled with regret. I'll do whatever it takes to make it right, he whispered. Amma didn't respond. She simply walked out of the room. Everything was just too much. That night, she cried herself to sleep, the weight of betrayal almost too much to bear. Determined to protect Kofi and uncover the truth, Amma reported her father to the authorities. Investigations revealed that Mr. Mensah had been involved with several men, some of whom had already reported him for exploitation. He was arrested and charged, his reputation in shambles. Kofi, meanwhile, begged Amma for forgiveness. He promised to turn his life around and work on rebuilding their marriage. Amma, despite her pain, vowed to stand by him. She reduced her work hours, dedicating more time to their relationship and helping Kofi heal. It was a long and difficult journey, but together they found a way forward. Kofi began therapy, slowly coming to terms with his identity and the choices he'd made. Amma, too, found solace in the strength she discovered within herself.